Okay, let's take a look at the aforementioned Blitz game that Fischer lost in the King's Gambit. So it was against Dan E. Mayers, who was a regular player at Adam Ralph's Golders Green Quick Plays, which is 30-minute chess. I've even played Dan Mayers a couple of times, and I think he's beaten me once or twice. So he's a very good player, even in his 80s. Very sharp, confident player. So here, Fischer accepted Gambit and then played Bishop c4. So we have the two main moves being demonstrated. There's either Knight f3 or Bishop c4, but Bishop c4 statistically is being used against world champions in particular, it seems, with good success, inviting the queen check. Here Fischer didn't play the queen check, he played Knight f6, and you may wonder, you know, should the pawn go forward? d3 looks a bit passive. Actually, Knight c3 was played, which seems logical enough. c6, which again seemed logical to strike in the centre with d5 if white's not careful. So d4 now, bishop b4. So with this pin, you know, there's pressure exerted on e4, d5 is greater supported. It seems, you know, a logical idea, bishop b4. But e5 was played nonetheless. And now, after knight e4, no defensive move, because there's also a threat of queen h4 check, which could be very, very annoying. So, so what to do here? Well, actually, a crude but effective move was played, given the situation, even though black might be theoretically better. Dan played queen h5, so ignoring c3 because he's on that classic f7 weakness, and there is a mate threat. The king's got no escape square at the moment. So here Fischer actually castled. Now maybe he could actually, I think I was checking this with Rivka, actually maybe he can play d5 as well, because after ed he can either just castle here, or maybe actually I think castling is the safest. Maybe knight takes d6 isn't as good. It might actually fail tactically. I haven't checked that one, but castling, this is a line I've checked, and this would have been okay for Fischer. Okay, let's see though. After Fischer castled, after queen h5 castling, knight g e2, protecting finally that knight on c3, now d5. Now keeping this pawn chain in the centre, which looks fairly strong, then just played bishop b3. g6 now, and Dan played queen h6. Okay, it looks fairly menacing. You know, potentially, you know, white's going to take on f4 with the bishop and maybe coming into these dark squares. It's very dangerous potentially for the black king. After bishop g2, bishop g4 though, bishop d2 was played, and Dan doesn't mind his king stuck in the centre, encouraging knight takes d2. Fischer actually goes incredibly badly wrong here. It's a blitz game, remember though. He should try and go for white's king and ignore the potential idea of knight takes f4 and g6, and to do that the logical move would appear to be f6 immediately here. So if knight takes f4, just take on e5, and if knight g6, just queen f6, and white king, you know, on d2 can't be healthy. This would be fine for black. Black would be better here, but Fischer went really badly wrong. He played g5, which is asking to be mated basically on h7. It's actually it's an incredibly bad move, and even here another bad move to follow up. Fischer just took on h4, so he's splintering all his pawns. h7 is just a losing weakness. So rook takes h4, bishop f5. Problem is white at leisure can pile up so easily on the h file now with rook h1. And now after this check, the bishop can't take it because queen h7. Bishop g6 was played, and now queen takes h7 mate. So a very short game, a blitz game, apparently played against Fischer in 1953 in New York. So you see here an only queen h5, kind of devastating really, as it turned out in this game. But maybe not necessarily. It didn't have to be like that. If black had played a timely f6 in this variation, in this line, so f6 here, black could have maybe crushed Mayers instead of being crushed by Mayers. So g5, just really asking for it, giving white everything he wanted from this gambit opening, the King's Gambit. So please leave any comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.